The following marketing information and discussion is provided for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as professional guidance or consultancy. You should find an agency for that. Comexis is a digital marketing agency, so feel free to hire us. But otherwise, just enjoy the show.
Hello everyone, welcome to The Buyer's Journey by Comexis, a discussion-based podcast on the ever-changing marketing landscape. I'm Matthew McGroarty, the social media content producer here at Comexis.
I am Len Ward, the managing partner at Comexis.
And I'm Josh Lyons, the digital marketing coordinator here at Comexis.
And today we continue our series focusing on the second quarter 2019 earnings calls and reports for a lot of the platforms and tools that we use as a marketing agency, as an advertising agency, etc. Today we are focusing on Alphabet, in particular Google. We focused on Facebook yesterday, so of course today we have to focus on the other big one of the two. You know what I'm saying, folks. The big boys. All right, we're focusing on Google today. So here are some key numbers. Again, a lot of this information comes from CNBC, in particular today from Laura Feiner on CNBC. They have a fantastic write-up. Again, I'll put it in the blog description. So earnings per share was $14.21 per share ex items versus $11.30 per share expected, again, per Refinitiv. Revenue was $38.94 billion versus the expected $38.15 billion. Traffic acquisition costs, which are basically the number that Google pays to have services like Apple make their service the default search engine, et cetera, were $7.24 billion versus $7.27 billion, according to StreetAccount. Paid clicks on Google properties from quarter 2 2018 to quarter 2 2019 were up 28%, and cost per click on Google properties from quarter 2 2018 to quarter 2 2019 were down 11%. Google reported advertising revenue of $32.6 billion for the second quarter, which was compared to the $28.09 billion during the same period last year. Google's other revenue also includes things like hardware, so their Pixel phones and their cloud products. That came in at $6.81 billion compared to $4.43 billion during last year's quarter. It was also said that cloud revenue made up a majority of this segment and was the third largest overall driver of Alphabet revenue growth. In addition, Google CEO Sundar Pichai said that the cloud business reached an annual revenue rate of over $8 billion. And Google, interestingly enough, Google said in February 2018 that its cloud business was bringing in $1 billion per quarter. So their cloud business continues to be very good and bring them in a ton of money. Pichai also said that the company wants to triple its cloud sales force over the next couple years. Google also saw a 28% increase in paid clicks on its properties in Q2 of 2019 compared to the same quarter last year. It also saw an 11% decrease in cost per click on Google properties, as I mentioned before, over that same period. For those of you who were listening to our podcast a couple months ago when we covered the first quarter, shares of Alphabet's stock sort of fell a little bit because Google reported some decelerating revenue growth, which they blamed on YouTube, its variety of PR issues, I guess, to put it lightly, along with some other things. But Google actually said that YouTube did very well this quarter as well. Quote, YouTube was again the second largest contributor of revenue growth, and we're really pleased with the ongoing momentum that we're seeing, said Porat. And she also clarified her assessment that deceleration in YouTube click growth contributed to overall slow-growing revenue was not the result of removing content from its platform that violated its policies. Basically, they're saying that actually removing some of the issues that they had on their problems on their service was not the reason that revenue dropped. It was click and CPC growth that were unrelated to actions on policy enforcement. So you can believe that if you'd like. So what do we think about this, guys?
All right, so I know that they baked in the Pixel, the cloud products, all that other great stuff. And that's congratulations, they did really well on that. $32.6 billion is what their advertising revenue is of $38 billion. So this is an advertising company, people. Yeah, they make phones and they have clouds and they have all that other stuff, and that's great. And I do think that you will eventually start seeing the advertising revenue go down as they are clearly trying to diversify in an increasingly competitive marketplace, and they realize that players like Facebook are on the scene. Let's not forget Amazon, who's on the scene, who's stealing e-commerce ad dollars in droves daily. But, you know, the thing with Google is Google was down last quarter, and I don't remember the updates that were happening before that, but I'm pretty sure in our last podcast, I'd like to play it again, that we said, okay, now Google's going to come in and do another update. Well, they did about 2 or 3 updates this quarter, which the minute you do updates and the minute SEO are having problems is you run directly over to pay-per-click to allocate your dollars, which is exactly what they did. It is very clear to me, and I'm a fan of Google, and I'm not saying that they do this for this, they do it for that. Google makes updates to increase user experience. They want to improve user experience. And secondly, they make updates because they're trying to get more money shifted over to the paid dollars. This is a common theme I say on every single earnings call that we have with Google. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. This is not a utility, it's a company. And when they're out to try to make money, they're going to put their best players on the field to make the money, which is Google AdWords. That's what they do. And that's what they're doing right now. So it doesn't necessarily mean, that, you can control that, but it comes back to a company on, okay, well, Len, I'm a company. How do I interpret this earnings report that you're telling me? Okay, here's how we do it. If you are a company who is sitting there saying, SEO drives all my traffic, I only do SEO, you're opening yourself up to be susceptible to a Google update. And when an update happens, you are going to see your revenue pull back dramatically. I would hope that you're no longer a company that says SEO leads the way with me, because SEO should not be leading the way with any company anymore. If you look at the entire buyer's journey, the awareness to consideration to purchase, I won't even talk about the other 2 right now, SEO basically lives in the consideration and to a point the purchase stage. It does not live in the awareness stage. It lives there. So it's getting smaller and smaller, the pie for the SEO campaign or for the SEO traffic. So these earning numbers, I can get into the numbers and everything else. It's reached a point now, if you want to play on Google, you absolutely have to have ad dollars on Google pay-per-click. Even if you're pay-per-clicking just your brand's name, if you're Joe's Italian Restaurant, make sure you're pay-per-clicking Joe's Italian Restaurant so your competitors aren't doing it. And then you have to go all the way down the rabbit hole of making sure that you're pay-per-clicking on other things. The most traffic that pay-per-click, I believe, will ever send a website is in a neighborhood of about, I think it's anywhere between 5 and 12% based upon what you're spending, but that 5 or 12% really drives a lot of traffic to your site. And not only is pay-per-click great for driving potential leads to your site, but if you're doing your campaign right, you actually go in, you do pay-per-click, and then you're retargeting on Facebook, and there's a whole metric on what you do. It's not that I'm saying pay-per-click is going to go in and you're going to get conversions, start making a lot of money, but it is one of the leading attributors to a conversion for a company. So kind of getting long-winded, I'm kind of going off the rails here, but if you're looking at the numbers, the only thing that's crystal clear to me on looking at all of these numbers is that if you plan on playing on paper or plan on being on Google, and 40% of your ad dollars should be on Google, no matter what you're doing, you're going to have to pay for it. It's got to the point where I think SEO absolutely should be something you're doing. It should be in your portfolio, but Google AdWords is going to lead the way. And if you're a company saying, you're wrong, Len, I get 80% of my traffic from search engine optimization, you're a company who is clearly headed towards the end because you're not investing the way you should be investing in the ad world today. So that's kind of my little dissertation on it.
Just to add to a couple of things. First, I'll start with the search engine optimization. We talked about in between the time since now and the first quarter earnings call, we've seen things like Rand Fishkin's great report on how many Google searches actually are either paid or organic that can lead to clicks to your website. And we know it is way less than 100%. It's like what? I think it was like 30.
It was 30. So the way it breaks down right now is 50% of clicks that come through on search engine optimization are things that people don't even click on. So it's checking, what's the weather today? When I used this on the last podcast. When did Ava Gardner die? I'm sorry, I was on this Frank Sinatra documentary kick. So, and then 12% goes to Maps, 5 to 8% goes to Google pay-per-click, and then like another 8% went to images. So at best, you're at 30%. So if you're not at 30%, and let's say you're 80% SEO and you're still doing good, which is still could happen. The problem is that what these earnings reports are telling you and what we're talking about right now is as the marketplace settles out, you're going to realize that search engine optimization on its best day is going to send you 30% of traffic on your site. Make the adjustments now. That's what these ad numbers are telling you, that we are moving into a straight paid world. And if you're not embracing this, I don't mean to say your company's coming to an end, but you're going to have a major problem with your advertising going forward.
2, 3 years
18 months down the road,
you're going to have an issue.
Yeah, and you're going to want to turn around and blame your ad agency. Oh, my SEO's not working anymore. You're right. It should only work 3 out of 10 times is all it should work. So, but that's what these ad numbers are showing. And I hope if somebody's listening to this podcast, if somebody's out there and you're kind of listening to it and thinking about stuff, again, you're talking to a guy. I started SEO. It's how my whole career started. I was an SEO manager. It's what I did. I did it freelance. But it's just not what it used to be, and these earnings are screaming to you, get your money in pay-per-click dollars. And let's just say, no, I don't want to do that. But at the bare minimum, have an ad campaign ready for when Google does roll out an update. You can then launch your pay-per-click campaign to offset any traffic you will lose for SEO. But the Rand Fiskin SparkToro blog post where he went through the entire thing, I think it was Jumpstart or Jump Media, somebody, I mean, just to me, and I said on that podcast, was the most eye-opening piece of data I've ever seen come out of the SEO world, because that shocked me. I didn't realize, okay, over 50% of clicks, people don't even, or 50% of searches, nobody even goes and clicks anything. I didn't know that.
And you knew it was a big deal when you had to sit us all down as an agency to go through it.
Yeah.
You said, guys, we need to meet, we need to talk about this.
It was stunning. Yeah, it was stunning. And I said, I'm like I told you guys, I'm like, you're a few times in your career, you're gonna look back and be like, wow, like I remember the Penguin update was so big for Google. This was huge. And it was funny how it was broken by a guy, Rand Fiskin, who I think a lot of. I think Rand Fiskin's a really smart guy. He knows his stuff. He broke it out. It was kind of, you would always think like friendly to Google per se, because SEO Moz made their money off Google. I mean, he said it's fraudulent. Something's going on. The most important part you take away from all of this right here is that if Google's earnings are not in line, or if you get a quarter where things are like not going too good, and let's just say the revenue falls next quarter, if you don't think an SEO update's coming, you're crazy. It's coming, because that's how they make their money. So to me, I'm going on the record, I'm saying I believe Google is absolutely using quote-unquote SEO updates to generate more ad dollars going into the pay-per-click world. Why else, guys? I mean, come on.
Not to mention, we also have examples like surveys and things in the past that we've talked about on the show, where we have, for new Google My Business services, how much would you be willing to pay a month, et cetera, et cetera. So we can see the writing on the wall, basically, of not only are they making these updates and things like that to help push you to pay-per-click, but even the more organic-based SEO things that an agency would normally take care of, like a Google My Business, they're trying to make you either pay for it or pay for specific new features that you need to have, et cetera, in whatever landscape that they decide to create out of Google My Business, just as an example. And obviously, nobody worry. We don't know any of these changes are actually happening. It was just a survey, but it's one of those things that clearly shows you the direction that things are
of where it's going. And I don't think, look, Google's not going anywhere. There's no way. If anybody said, okay, gun to your head, where are you putting all your ad dollars? Nowhere else. Google. I'm not even batting an eye. And as much of a fan as I am of Facebook, and I believe social is going to eventually overtake Google as it is right now. But I do think that you have to have your ad dollars on Google. And like you said, they are rolling out these other products which are kind of going against Facebook, like the Google Local and stuff like that you can start investing in. I think that, what is it called again, that product?
Google My Business?
Yeah, not Google My Business, but what's the product they were putting in there you just mentioned?
So what I was mentioning was there was surveys a couple months ago for Google My Business, specifically about new and different paid features that you may be willing to pay for.
That's right. So that's what Google Maps, you can obviously do a pay-per-click campaign to be in Google Maps, but you absolutely have to be there. It's just understand that Google's a business. They're not here. They're not like we said. They're not a utility. They're not a government where they got to help you. They're here to make money. They have Wall Street investors to answer to. Run your business that way. But just know that the days of not doing pay-per-click are over. And if you think you're going to get away with just running a small pay-per-click campaign, again, this is where we are very big in a 3-to-1 lifetime value ratio. Know exactly what it costs to obtain a client. Know your cost per acquisition. Bake that cost per acquisition into your pay-per-click campaign and do it the right way. Don't just throw $1,000 of pay-per-click and be like, I didn't get anything from it, I'm getting screwed. No, know exactly what you have to invest so you can obtain the clients you want to obtain. So, as we said on the last podcast yesterday, 40% of your ad dollars should be on Facebook and Instagram. 40% of your ad dollars should be on Google and YouTube. Right now, I'm firm at 80% on those two, and the last 20% are other things we'll talk about on these podcasts for earnings. Although there's one that I think has begun, and it's not the one you guys are thinking, there's one that has begun to make a move, and it's kind of a dark horse. It's coming up from the right-hand side. And I'm almost willing to say that they get 5%, and I'm willing to shave off 2.5 from Facebook and 2.5 from Google and move it over there. There's one that's coming. So there you go. That's all right.
Well, Josh, anything to add before we close this one out?
Yeah.
All right, good enough for me.
No, that's fine. There was the only thing that I basically had was to basically prove Len's point where he said how there was going to be Google updates, and because of those updates, it was going to force people to go more paid. And it said that Google saw a 28% increase in paid clicks on its properties from last quarter to this quarter. Obviously, because they made their changes, they're forcing people to pay more and get paid clicks. A 28% is a big jump for a year.
It's a big jump because the companies that were affected on this last update, and I think it was the same companies that were affected by the last update, is medical and gambling. Gambling I have to look into, but a lot of it, according to what Jim here was saying, a lot of it was medical facilities, medical. That's a really, really, perfect way to SEO. Do I have XYZ? What would I do to get rid of XYZ? It's perfect SEO content. You write a blog on, you write a video on. It's easy to search. Well, if they do a huge hiccup update and you're not getting that traffic as a referral to become a doctor's appointment or whatever it may be, you got to go to paid. So medical does not make the investment they need to make in digital marketing. And I think this is maybe Google's way of saying I think they do max 10% of the total digital sphere is what they invest, maybe even less. Think about that for a minute. Medical is barely at 10%, even pharmaceutical. This is Google's way of trying to do a little push of you need to get your ad dollars up. Stop putting it on TV, stop putting it in print that goes out to you, pharmaceutical, and get it over here on Google. So I think that, in my opinion, I'd be very interested. I'm paying attention to the pharmaceutical world, pay attention to the medical world to see how many more of these companies are going to start drifting over into Google. Because at that point, if you think their earnings are good now, wait to the medical and the pharmaceutical, who's the leading advertiser in the world, wait till they start getting in there, and then everything changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's all for today's episode of The Buyer's Journey. Check us out on Comexis.com, YouTube, and anywhere you can get your podcasts. And please follow us on Twitter at @buyers_journey. Thanks for tuning in.